Hello and welcome. I'm your host Will. Let's head back to the 80s and discuss the multiple origins of another beloved character. But instead of He-Man, let's switch tracks and go straight to G.I. Joe. In this video, we're gonna take a look at the multiple origins of the mercenary saboteur, Firefly. Let's get to it.
I want to see that face.
For every superhero, there is an equal and opposing supervillain. That could very well be an official law of science. And I personally believe that some of the most well-loved pop culture superheroes have only reached the heights of fame due to the compelling characters who have opposed them. A glaring example of this would be the Special Forces team known as G.I. Joe, whose mission to defend humans from the terrorizing Cobra popularized them and even immortalized them in Marvel history. Now, their long-standing history includes countless interactions with Cobra members, ranging from the Baroness to Destro. Among them, Firefly is a rather popular name in the G.I. Joe Rogue Gallery, and today I am here to take you through this evasive, mysterious character's origins and tell you everything you should know about him. How was Firefly first introduced in Marvel Comics? Well, we all know that Firefly has been associated with Marvel Comics. You can't really call yourself a fan without truly knowing his origin story, especially due to his mysterious nature and stealth tactics. It's a real challenge to track him down, let alone drill him for details about his character, which is why I dug through the G.I. Joe, a real American comic series, until I stumbled upon his 24th issue, which goes into all the details of his first appearance. Introduced in June 1984, in the comic issue titled The Commander Escapes, Firefly is first spotted at the Cobra headquarters, where he is introduced by none other than the Baroness. With the Cobra commander being captured, the Baroness introduces two new team members, Wild Weasel and Firefly. Described as a man of international repute, Firefly seems content with the Baroness taking the lead and barely tries to establish any rapport with his new team members. Instead, he has always been someone who takes initiative and acts instead of talk, and he jumps right into the action by trailing the homing device all the way from Chokolosky to a deserted shack in the Everglades in search of the Cobra commander. While the others are rather shocked, the comic ends on a shocking note as the Cobra commander announces himself at the headquarters while declaring that the deserted shack's inhabitant is right there. Moreover, the owner seems to be pretty upset with Firefly and Wild Weasel's trespassing, and the issue ends with him pointing two guns at them. The issue introduced Firefly with a bang and placed him in the midst of the action, as he actively participates in this mission to track the commander down without having been familiarized with the team. While this was rather impressive, it also got us wondering about his origins and set his reputation as a masked saboteur with a mystery about himself. Where does Marvel give Firefly his main origin? Firefly's mysterious reputation then continued for the next 100 issues or so, and it was not until the comic's 126th issue that came out in 1992 that we got a peek into his origins. The issue begins with a tagline, "Meet Firefly. He knows where the bodies are buried," and Marvel must have picked up on fans labeling him as a mystery because the comic begins with him revealing himself as the Red Ninja leader, while the Ninja Force's Storm Shadow struggles to recognize him. Firefly himself comments on it by saying that he's surprised that he doesn't recognize him even with his real mask on, while TJ Bang, Munchuk, and Dojo all try to figure out his true identity. Finally, Slice and Dice declare that they cannot be defeated by a pretender with no ninja credentials, and as they lunge at him, Firefly teaches them a hard lesson by slashing them down while declaring that he wears his credentials on his sleeve, fists, and feet. Sure enough, his kicks, lunges, and sword strikes all tell enough of a story and leave no room for him to have to prove his credibility as a ninja. However, he seems to be having fun with this fight, and he even asks them if they need any further demonstrations, while the comic takes us away from the scene to fully establish his history. We learn that while he is a mysterious saboteur and assassin affiliated with some truly twisted organizations, including Cobra, his services as a master of explosives and covert infiltration can eventually be bought. In this way, he serves the highest bidder, who transfers his fees into a Swiss bank account while he operates under the Firefly name and keeps his true origins, homeland, or life details under wraps. The one thing that we do learn for sure is that one should never turn their back on him, and surely enough, even one misstep on the opponent's part is enough for Firefly to demonstrate his slick, unexpected moves. As Storm Shadow continues to spill his secrets, we also learn that he holds Firefly accountable for the Soft Master's murder, an attack that also put Billy in a coma and resulted in him losing an eye and a leg. While Storm Shadow's words agitate Billy, the comic further reveals that they were under the impression that Firefly had died, while the man himself intervenes and laughs over his alleged death. Declaring that he'll show them who's dead, Firefly once again prepares for an attack while revealing that he was not in that death trap for longer than a second, while the others double down on him for abandoning his comrades. However, Firefly had not gotten so far by caring for others or sacrificing himself for some ally, and he states that he is someone with infinite practicality and no burden of sentiments weighing him down. While his origins are rather fragmented across the issue and left to the audience to put together, the comic does one thing for sure, and that is putting together a compelling case for his self-preserving personality. With ample skills in his arsenal, Firefly comes across as a true mercenary for hire, one whose success rate ensures that he stays in business even without having to deal with the burdens of working with a team. As the comic progresses, he sheds light on how he escaped Cobra Island by making use of an abandoned bats, aka battle android troopers, that dug through the volcano rubble and got him his hard-earned freedom. While the Red Ninjas are outraged by his words and interpret them as him trying to gloat about leaving his friends behind, Firefly drops the final shocker. He explains that the Cobra commander assumed that he was dead because he had tallied the body count by dressing the forgotten Serpentor in his uniform, damaging his head and leaving his dead body behind to impersonate his corpse. In this way, Firefly was then free to start his new venture. But the Red Ninjas refused to accept this story. To them, Firefly was a regular terrorist who could never be the same person as the Red Ninja leader, the mighty master of the Arashikage ninja style. They claimed that the leader knew the secret finger knits, the solution to the Zen koan riddles, and the meaning of the clan hexagram, and at this point, all that was left for Firefly to do was drop these secrets. However, he takes his own sweet time with it and begins by explaining his father's origins as a plantation owner in French Indochina, who had spared the life of a young Japanese officer. This officer turned out to be the son of the Koga Ninja's Grand Master, and he repaid the favor by taking Firefly in after his father's death. In this way, Firefly grew up with the Koga Ninja clan, trained with them, and accomplished the rare feat of being the first outlander to master a ninja style, which paved the way for him to work with the mystic swordsman, Onihashi. Now this is where the dots really connect, as Firefly gained access to the Arashikage's personal weapon maker and subsequently drew closer to their household until he eventually gained permission to study their secret forms. The story then takes a turn as Firefly tells them all about the time he convinced the Cobra commander to hire Zartan to kill Snake Eyes, while he manipulates things from the sidelines as a true saboteur. Now, I do commend this comic for the way it not only has the character narrate his life story, but also provides enough evidence to back his claims, as he soon uses a gas mask to knock these rather unbeatable ninjas out and even threatens to use the brainwave scanner on them. While most traditional comics rely on flashbacks to delve into character origins, Firefly's story is refreshing on the eyes and the ears as he takes it upon himself to boast about his antics. Especially coming from a character as reserved as Firefly, this origin tale was a treat, as we get to see his experiences through a first-person lens before witnessing his claims turning out to be true as soon as he displays his Arashikage clan-based techniques. How does Devil's Due expand his Arashikage backstory? Coming to his Arashikage backstory, Devil's Due Publishing Snake Eyes Declassified Comics 5th issue did a good job of expanding on his history. While the comic is largely focused on Snake Eyes' reimagined origins, it also sheds light on Faceless, aka Firefly, as he guides Zartan in his mission to kill Snake Eyes. Set against the darkness of the night, the comic's panels take us through Firefly talking about recommending Zartan for the job and eventually having doubts about how Zartan might embarrass him. Even when the latter promises to do what is expected of him, Firefly isn't entirely convinced that Zartan has the stomach for it. As the story progresses, their weapons are also locked onto Snake Eyes' pulse and breathing patterns, leaving Zartan with no scope for failure. Firefly also ensures that Zartan knows this well enough, but alas, fate has a different plan for them. On the night of the attack, the Arashikage clan's leader, the Hard Master, was in a training session with Snake Eyes, which involved him demonstrating how to perform the blind sword technique. Unfortunately, the technique involved the Hard Master mimicking Snake Eyes' heartbeat, and in the most unexpected turn of events, this is the exact moment Zartan chooses to fire the attack. Now, since his weapon was configured using heartbeats, the compound bow strikes the Hard Master down and claims his life, while Snake Eyes watches in utter horror. While the Hard Master's nephew is blamed for the attack and is soon left with no choice but to leave the clan, Firefly's notorious plans do not come to light until much, much later, which fits in with his evasive personality. Even if he had spent the majority of his younger life being affiliated with the ninjas and the Arashikage heritage, Firefly's tendency to slip under the radar ensured that the truth never fully came out. And even today, many fans might be unaware of the true details of this event that has been partially covered in the mainstream Marvel continuity. Now, this does give you a bigger picture of Firefly's childhood, training with the ninjas, and affiliation with the Cobra commander. And the more I think about it, the more I understand his behavior. For someone who had lost his family at a young age and had to rely on the favors of others, Firefly definitely shows a lot of bravery as he makes full use of any opportunity that comes his way. He takes advantage of his father's favor on the clan leader's son to gain access to their trainings and earn a reputation as faceless before working in cahoots with Zartan to infiltrate them. And all of this proves that he was always destined to be a resourceful, sly saboteur. How does Reloaded reimagine him? However, you'd be surprised to know that there are many faces to this slick ninja, and Devil's Due Publishing had put out a reboot continuity where he was depicted as a ruthless mercenary. Appearing in G.I. Joe Reborn and G.I. Joe Reloaded, Firefly is no longer a faceless villain working from the shadows, but rather, he is at the forefront of a terror attack, an attempted bombing, as well as full-fledged Cobra operations. Let's get into the details of this, beginning with the G.I. Joe Reborn one-shot comic released in 2004. The comic begins with several acts of sabotage, ranging from officials discovering they have been infected with the Omega Black virus, to Sergeant Wilkinson and Captain Hart Burnett learning that many of their men have been permanently blinded while on a mission to a Cobra outpost. To make matters worse, the Golden Gate Bridge is hit by an explosion, and Colonel Abernathy and Master Sergeant Hauser attempt to assemble a special team, only to learn that their systems have been hacked by the Cobras. While they try to track these attacks down, Cobra Commander eyes Firefly and waits for him to approach them in the hopes of recruiting him to join their organization. When Cobra's sabotage brings all like-minded mercenaries for hire under threat of being captured, Firefly himself declares his presence to the commander, while the latter declares that he had been waiting for him in the hopes that their activities will draw their attention. Even though Firefly retaliates by declaring that he is playing a dangerous game, the commander lets him have his moment, praises him for his ultimate saboteur reputation, and even gives him a chance to work together. Their adventures continue in the following G.I. Joe Reloaded comics, wherein Cobra Commander has managed to raise a legion of followers who must be dealt with before they stir up too much trouble. In a time when the world needs G.I. Joe more than ever, the Cobras invade the secret Mount Silver facility, capture the dangerous remote aircraft known as the Black Dragon 6, and even steal the Constitution. It is these antics that involve Firefly's participation, as he dedicates himself to their purpose after joining hands with the Cobras for good. Over the 14-issue long comic, Firefly's antics as an urban terrorist only get bolder and bolder with each issue, as he starts small with an attempt to steal the US Constitution and eventually makes larger-than-life plans for destruction, such as attempting to blow up the world's largest oil refinery, until he is eventually captured by G.I. Joe's Rock and Roll, who had been looking to seek revenge for his girlfriend's death during the initial Golden Date attack. Now, this version of Firefly is a stark contrast to the behind-the-scenes saboteur we had grown to love, but this version also has many interesting character traits. His strategy is a lot more offensive and bold, but I would be lying if I said that this grittier, fierce version was not a refreshing, well-deserved spin to the character. Not many superheroes or villains have such intriguing origins, and with all that he has been through, Firefly has a lot of potential to go beyond his sneaky schemes. I'm rather glad that the writers picked up on his overflowing capabilities and reimagined him as a ruthless mercenary. But worry not. If this version did not speak to you, let's take a turn towards the more grounded Firefly who appears in IDW Publishing. How does IDW recast Firefly? After Devil's Due Publishing lost its license to publish G.I. Joe in 2008, IDW Publishing secured the rights to continue the comic. However, they rebooted the story and put their own spin on it, thereby largely ignoring the Marvel and Devil's Due continuities, even if the story in question was a continuation of Marvel's A Real American Hero. In this series, Firefly's appearance deviates from his previous version. He is depicted as a black man, but his personality remains the same, adapted to a modern-day setting. These details of his origins were explored in depth when IDW published G.I. Joe Hearts and Minds, a comic miniseries focused on particular Joes and Cobras. In the second issue of this comic, creators Max Brooks, Howard Chaykin, and Antonio Fuso give us a rather detailed glimpse into his thought process as he goes about his missions and wreaks havoc in real time. The comic begins with him trespassing through a high-rise building's lobby without even stirring up any trouble, but rather by keeping a low profile and sneaking past the guards. As he scans a key card and walks past heavily armed security, he thinks about how sabotage isn't about destroying machines, but rather, it's all about finding the flaws that result in the machines destroying themselves. The start itself had me hooked to the story, and the narration plays out in a way that you feel like you're witnessing it all from within Firefly's head. As he makes it past security and makes small talk with the security guard, he walks past a no smoking sign and soon pretends to get to work as a plumber who had been called in to fix a toilet. However, he swaps a computer chip, drills some holes in the walls, and uses a power drill to cut through the wall before connecting it to a hose, passing all of this off as his plumbing work. Thankfully, the security guard barely pays any attention to his wrongdoings as Firefly keeps him engaged in small talk while the comic takes us through visions of a submarine sinking, an offshore oil platform catching fire, and a space shuttle exploding. Now, these hints suggest Firefly's history of tampering with machines, but it's not long before the story returns to the present day to reveal that he had connected a hose between plumbing pipes. However, the next panel reveals the catch, as the water pipe is situated next to a gas pipe and an old forgotten high-pressure air pipe that was used to deliver messages through a pneumatic network back in the day. As he connects the gas pipe to this forgotten air pipe, Firefly doesn't waste much time taking his leave while two employees fancy a smoke and make their way to the smoke room, unaware of the fact that their smoke would soon carry through the pipes and result in an explosion that will destroy the entire structure. In the meantime, the comic takes us through Firefly's process as he follows the desk clerk to a sports bar to learn how he gets lost in baseball and how that can be used to his advantage while sneaking in. In the same way, he had located a secret smoke room in the building's 12th floor through a high-powered scope, which soon gave him the information he needed to connect the air and gas pipes and trigger an explosion. While this comic focuses more on his MO than his origins, it is refreshing to peek into Firefly's mind, especially as he gets a clean break and separates himself from his faceless master identity and orchestrates his sabotages out in the open, even if he has the same personality. IDW's Firefly has a more grounded one. He no longer seems to be hiding behind a mask, and he has definitely gone through a shift in terms of his attack style. This new and improved saboteur uses classic psychological tricks and distractions to fulfill his schemes, rather than sneaky physical attacks that compelled him to keep his true identity hidden in the past. How was Firefly introduced in Sunbow Animation? Voiced by Greg Berger, Sunbow Animation's G.I. Joe series introduces Firefly as a true mystery, with barely any context into his origins. While this marks his first animated appearance, his background remains ambiguous, even after countless appearances, almost as if they intended to preserve his mystery. He first appeared in the G.I. Joe, A Real American Heroes 1984 miniseries, The Revenge of Cobra, before aiding Cobra in several notorious adventures across Sunbow Animation's G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero series. In this franchise, he remains under wraps, does not seem to be a huge fan of being affiliated with the Cobras, and is intent on remaining mysterious to the point that he even threatens the Cobra commander, demanding that he never refer to him by name. His obsession with secrecy eventually overtakes him as he goes as far as to threaten a couple of innocent Arctic researchers against looking at him in the face, in a rather amusing exchange where his mask makes it impossible for anyone to identify him anyway. While this series does not truly explore his origins, he does play a crucial role as he provides the Cobra commander with underworld contacts when the commander goes broke and turns to him for help. While he disappears in the show's second season, he makes a brief return to aid the Cobra commander in the episode Into Your Tent, I Will Silently Creep, where they designed an elaborate plot to claim Serpentor's life. Even though Sunbow Animation's Firefly was a true esoteric mystery through and through, I couldn't help but fangirl over his aura. Truly, there is something charming about a closed-off personality with a successful hit rate, and even though this show does not get into his roots as a faceless master or an affiliate of the Arashikage clan, it does depict him in all his mercenary glory. How does Renegades completely reinvent him? And last, but surely not least, the animated G.I. Joe Renegades television series puts its own spin on Firefly's story when it broadcast all the way back in 2010. The series was admittedly a change of pace from the Sunbow animation version, as it followed young military members turned fugitives who dedicate their lives to unraveling Cobra Industries' twisted plots. Along the way, the series introduced Firefly in the 10th episode, Firefight, and entirely reinvented him to be a pyromaniac. The story begins with Cobra Industries receiving a court order to halt the dam construction in Green Ridge, a decision that clearly does not bode well with the Baroness and Dr. Mindbender. This episode then marks Firefly's wildcard entry as they recruit him to burn the entire town down, and as he made an unforgettable entrance, fans were rather surprised to see him wearing his burn marks like trophies instead of covering his face with a mask like most past versions. I'd even go as far as to say that this is his most radically different interpretation, as he embraces his pyro tendencies and almost worships destruction as if it were a religious practice. As the episode progresses, Firefly uses explosives and custom-made incendiary grenades resembling signal flare sticks to burn the place to the ground. With the fire spreading, G.I. Joe and a local firefighter team up to save this former resort town. But Firefly is no ordinary opponent, and he eventually sneaks up on the Joes and disrupts their plans when they try to prevent the fire from spreading to neighboring grounds. While he clearly retains his infiltration and espionage-related skills, this animated series also hints at his ninja past as he dodges his own flames and sneaks on board the Joe's plane, all while showing a brand new pyromaniac side. While this show is quite a twist on traditional depictions of the Cobras as well as G.I. Joe, Firefly's true personality does bleed through every now and then, and I'd say that the fiery plans were an add-on trait. After all, Firefly isn't Firefly with scheming plans and some good old-fashioned sneaking around, as depicted in the episode's climax, where he sneaks on board a plane, destroys the only bridge in town, and eventually sneaks off after a confrontation with Duke and Snake Eyes. Even though the episode's end leaves his survival to chance, I'd bet that he probably snuck his way out of the mess and left a whole lot of destruction behind in true saboteur fashion. I believe this video has given you a good idea of Firefly's origins across the franchise, with change being the only constant. There's no denying that his origin story has undergone many tweaks and transformations. However, at the heart of it all, Firefly still remains shrouded in mystery as a masked saboteur, and no matter how many times he reinvents himself, his mysterious aura and tendency to take charge of situations from the shadows will ensure that he always remains a tough nut in G.I. Joe's rogue gallery. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss any future content like this. Till next time!